Hello and welcome to another episode of How to Learn Excel through a live project. Hope you all enjoyed what we learned yesterday. In our previous episode, we created the payment mode and then we have expanded our scope to define the bank account details also. So, in our previous episode, though it is to create the payment mode, the objective was to learn about how to structure the data as table and how to use the sort feature and how to use the feature to identify duplicates and how to remove it. All those features we have learned, along with the techniques for how to use simple formulas and using the flash fill. So, in the same line, in today's episode, we will be learning more about other features like how to define a table and how to use all the features of tables in Excel and how to name a table and how to use formulas with the table name as well as the column name. So, all these things we will learn when we are creating another feature for our application called the expense header. So, what is an expense header and why do we need it in our expense tracking application? Let's quickly go through our finished expense tracker application to understand it better. So, every month you will be spending your money based on your budget on various type of expenses. Maybe you will be paying for your car EMI, or you will be paying for your insurance, or you may be buying some provisions or rations on a monthly basis, and also you may be spending it for credit card payment or many things. So you will be interested in creating a budget for all these account headers. For example, I may be defining a budget by which I will not be spending more than $200 for my entertainment. So, how do you categorize all these things so that you can record your expenses to know how much you have spent against each category? So, that is where we need to define our expense header in advance, which can be added or modified later and create a budget against each expense header so that we can track it. So let us look at our expense tracker. Let us assume I'm going to create a budget for my monthly entertainment expenses and I want to fix the cap on the budget for $200 per month. And I don't want to exceed that. And if I'm exceeding it, my application should provide me an alert that I'm exceeding my budget. I've been to a movie and I also been to an amusement park today and I spent some money more than my budget. So let me try to capture my expense in my expense tracker. Okay, I'm going to my next is 79 and it is today and I'm planning to record my entertainment expenses. So I don't have one. Okay. So let me see how I can define that. And this is my expense header group and I say expenses and my monthly it is I'm going to track my expense for entertainment on a monthly basis and I may define my budget for $200. Let me go to my tracker now and select. Now I have, since I have defined my expense head for entertainment expenses, it is available now in my daily tracker and I spent money through cash for my movie ticket. I say been to movie with family and I spent $100 in it. So it is already indicating me that monthly budget for my entertainment expenses $200 over here. I don't have the currency symbol defined. We will define it when we are going through that. Now, if I go here, the annual expense so far what I have spent is $100 and it is in rupee. We will rectify it. And in the month of July, I spent $100 and well within the budget of $200 per month. So it is coming in normal font. I'm going back And on the same day, I've been to the amusement park also. Same day, again I'm selecting entertainment expenses, and this time I paid through my credit card and been to amusement park. And this time I spent, for example, another $200. So far my budget is $200. So far in the same day I spent $300. Let me see how my expense head tracking is working. So it is already calculated $300 for July 2024 and giving me an indication in red stating that I exceeded my budget. So this is what we are going to do. And when we are doing it, we will be learning some more techniques in Excel. So that is what is the intention. Let us go directly. Let's quickly see what is our learning objective for today. So we have completed our payment mode the previous day, and today we are going to talk about expense group. And in that, our major learning objectives are how we will be learning how to format as a table, and we'll be learning about how to name it, expand the table, etc. Let us go in detail and see. So in the when we are creating the expense headers, we'll be utilizing this to learn the following. So yesterday we have created a table, a simple table in which like we created the columns and we have created the column headers and formatted everything. But Excel is having one beautiful option to format as a table. It's a very advanced, very beautiful feature we'll be learning in this particular episode. And there is a feature by which like you can set a table with a name and we can utilize that name for our future reference. We will also learn it, and we will learn how to suppose you have created a table, how to increase its size and how to expand it. Everything we will learn. And there are additional features like you can mark one column as the first column or the last column, and you can also format the table as a banded row, banded column, everything we will learn related to the table. In addition to that, we will also learn about simple validations in cell. And the validation we will learn about is how to create a number field validation, and also we'll learn about how we will create a data validation so that it allows only a selected list. So let us start
Let
by
us go.
opening our expense tracker application, the Excel workbook, which we have created yesterday. Let us continue with that. So I kept my Excel workbook already open, in which we already created our payment mode and the bank account. The first thing, what I'm going to do now is when we were creating this Excel workbook yesterday, we have the payment mode as the first worksheet and the bank account as the second worksheet. But logically speaking, it is the bank account which has to come first, and then comes the payment mode. So let me move this. So I can simply click and drag it to the left and moving it to the left side of it. The Excel sheet can be moved anywhere you like within your list of Excel sheets in a workbook. Okay. Now I have to create a new worksheet. So we will do it through the new worksheet. And as usual, I'm going to give a name and call it as expense head. Okay. These are all the things. It's common. We will be doing little quicker. First, I need to have a serial number, and then I will be having a column called expense head. Let us start only with this. Let me create few of my known expense head. It depending upon how you manage your expenses. I am creating it for my own expense heads. So like that, you can follow this same line and create your own. My first, the major expense for me is housing loan. Okay. Next, I'll be paying for the monthly maintenance, monthly apartment maintenance. Like this, let us quickly create few expense heads from our I'm copying it from my existing data, but what you can do is, like, depending upon your expense type, you can create one. And let us create all the expense head which you need. If you have forgotten to add some expense head, you don't worry, you can always add it during your daily accounts entry time. Okay, so I am going to do the flash fill for my serial number. So, or else, what I'm going to do, since this is an account head, let me create something called an account code. Let me call it as expense code. And I will be saying as exp001 and exp002. And I am going to use my flash fill to select these two and click on the right bottom corner of the selected Excel sheets and double click to create an expense code which is following a pattern. Okay. I'm not going to format, or I'm not going to do any structure table, because we will be using the feature called format as table in this workbook. Now, the next thing what I want is, like, I want to define my budget. Let me leave the column C and go here and call it as monthly budget. Let me, I can call it as, see, all the things what I'm mentioning here is a huge amount, but since it is, I am from India, in my mind it's always Indian rupee is coming to the picture. But we have made our payment account payment mode, and we have defined in dollars. The value may be very huge, you don't worry, it is just a trial. So later we can reduce all these things. Okay, so let me just make some amount. It's not my exact monthly budget amount. So instead of, and then apartment maintenance, for example, it is 5,000. So like that, let me copy what I have already prepared in the interest of time. So I'm going to create, copy everything, and everything here is in Indian rupee. The source Excel what I'm copied. I'm here I'm going to define everything in dollar, so I don't need that rupee symbol. So what I'm doing is I'm going to say right click and press value, that is paste special. It is, instead of, if I paste this, it will come with the Indian rupee, and if I paste only the value will come, and all other formatting formulas, everything will go. Now let me make it as a dollar. So I made it as a dollar, and I am not going for the annual budget here now, because I am going to manage a budget frequency, because not every expense you will be doing on a monthly basis. Instead, what you will do, you may be doing it on monthly, few you may be paying by quarterly, for example an insurance payment, or few you may be paying 6 months or 1 year, maybe a school fees or your medical insurance, anything it may be. Okay, so here, when I'm coming to a monthly frequency, I want give a defined value to be entered, not anything you like. So the thing, for example, I may be interested in making it as a monthly payment, quarterly payment, biannual payment, or annual payment, or a budget may be unplanned. Only among this, whatever I have made here, these are all the things what I want to enter here, and I don't want to enter anything other than this. So how do I do that? I will be using one of the feature in Excel called data validation. Let us look at how we can do the data validation. So for that, for example, in this column and in this cell, I want to restrict the data. What I will do, I will go to the table data, And if you go here in the data tools box, one button called data validation. And if you select the caret symbol over here, you have data validation. And if you open here, you have multiple options. Let us go one by one. The first thing what we are going to see is like we are going to restrict our data to list. So if I am using a list, I can define the list through multiple way. We are going to look at the first way, which is easy one. Okay. So I have here monthly, quarterly, biannual, annual, and unplanned. So I can type here the list monthly separated by comma, quarterly, biannual, annual. Okay. So everything, if you notice, everything is separated by comma. And I say okay. Now, if I come here, it automatically provides a choice for me through a simple combo box by which I can select whatever I want. So it also has a filter feature. Type M, automatically the monthly will come. If we say U, automatically the unplanned will come. You can do everything you want. If I am typing anything other than what I have defined in the list, for example, I say once in 2 years, and when I enter, it very clearly says this value doesn't match the data validation restriction defined for this cell. So do you want to retry, cancel, or help? So I can cancel it. Now, I don't want to define everything in the source column. Instead, I want to define my values separately in the worksheet itself, and I want to use that. Can I use it? Yes, you can use it. So let us do this. I can do by going to data validation, go for a list. I mean, keep your cursor in the source and you select all these things together. So it will automatically come as equal to with an absolute reference of the column and the row, the starting row and column and the ending row and column, where which you can use as the validation rule. Now also if I go here, automatically it comes. Now I want this rule to be copied to all the cells. So how do I do it? Let me copy this cell and select up to where you want to copy the formula, the validation, whatever you have created. Right click and say paste special and go and say I want to copy only the validation. Now anywhere in the row you go, your same validation rule is applied here. You can use other features, like you can define this particular list of data as a range, named range, and you can use it. So these are all the things slowly we will learn one by one. Okay. Now, similarly, I want a validation rule to be implemented in my budget also. That is like I'm planning to implement a validation rule by which my monthly budget should be between a range. I don't want to define a budget which is less than $100, or I don't want to define a budget which is more than $100,000. Let me define a rule like that. Okay, I'm going back to the data validation and I say that I want a whole number between 100 and 100,000. Now, I have defined a rule like this, and if I'm saying 50, it will say that this doesn't match. And if I say 800,000, then also it will validate and throw an error. But if I say 560, it will accept. So hope you are able to follow how we will do a data validation through this tool called data tools and data validation. So in the same line, I believe you will be able to create your expense heads and define the frequency of your budget monitoring, and you can define the monthly budget. So for now, in the interest of time, let me copy all these things, the budget frequency also, from my existing Excel sheet. So I created all these things. Now we have defined few as monthly, few as quarterly, few as unplanned, like that. So I want to calculate the annual budget. The monthly will be multiplied by 12, the quarterly will be multiplied by 4, and unplanned will be multiplied by 1, and annual also will be multiplied by 1. Okay. So how do you calculate it? There are multiple ways in which, like, you can use a complex formula in which, depending upon this value, you can multiply. But sometimes it is better to have it very simple. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a hidden column called multiplication factor, and I am going to say I'll select all monthly and make it 12, and I will select all quarterly and I'll multiply by 4, and select annually and unplanned, and I will define the multiplication factor as 1. Now I will do a simple formula by dividing my monthly budget and multiplication factor, and I will arrive at the annual budget. So how we will do the complex formula, but if you want a sneak peek of it, let me just explain you. So that one easy way, I will say the multiplication factor here as 1, quarterly as 4, biannually as 2, and annual as 1, and here as 1. So one simple formula is, I will use a function called, we will look at VLOOKUP in detail later, but I'm just giving you a sneak peek. I will select the lookup value, that is monthly, and then I will define the table from where I need to find out, and I will see this is the table and this is the column number. This M is column number 1 and N is column number 2. I will say that I will use 2, and I will say false, and it will automatically come. So I will be using a absolute reference over here, and I'll multiply this. So this annually is not here. Here it is called annual. Let me make it as annual. So once I change it, so it will automatically come. So here, okay, one advantage also I will show. Here I wrongly defined monthly as 1. Now let me make it as 12. So all were, see, let me show it again. So here I have defined the monthly frequency, the multiplication factor as 1 instead of 12. Monthly means it need to be 12. So since I use the VLOOKUP formula, everything here is coming as 1. I typed, this is a small mistake I did. So how do I correct it? I just need to go and change this to 12, and all the monthly will become 12. So once again, let me tell you, don't worry about this. So we will be looking at the VLOOKUP separately. Okay. So let me remove this filter. Okay. So now we have created our expense head. But in the earlier tables and all, like, we were doing all the formatting and other thing. But here we haven't done it. So let us find a better way of how to format it as a proper table. So Excel has provided already a feature to format this table and use many features. Okay. So I will select the first column over here and go to the format as table, and it will show you multiple styles of how you want your data to be formatted. So let me select this turquoise table style 16, light 16, and once you select it, so it will tell you the range. If you want, you can adjust it, but normally it will choose the correct set of data. And see, for example, you need to note one more thing. So this ignored this data, and then it will ask you whether your table has a header or not having a header. It is always better to select the header and say OK. So your table is formatted beautifully. Now, what are the advantage of using this table? First of all, this table is provided with the name. So as soon as I click here, if you look at the top, so a new menu has been enabled called table design. If you click on the table design, on the left hand side, it has something called table name, and the table name assigned to this automatically by Excel is table 5. Because I have already used this Excel sheet to create multiple tables. So every time I create a table, it will increment by 1 and it will do it. So, but I want to define a name of my choice. So I call this table as expense head. Now this table is named as expense head. So what if I want one more column here? So if I'm adding one column here, if I'm adding one column here called, for example, my flag. So automatically Excel will consider it as part of the table. And if I want physically to expand this table, what I can do is I can drag by holding my mouse to the right bottom and drag it, so it will create another table, another column. And if I'm writing something here as a new row adjacent to the last row of the table, 024, so and I say that this is a sample expense header, so automatically it will be included in your table. So if you go to the next one, so the band also will come. If you want to remove this column, you just select and delete it. So what is the other advantage of this particular table? Suppose here I want to use a simple formula just for our training. I want to divide this by 2. So earlier we have been using the cell address as, for example, suppose I want to divide the annual budget by 2. What formula we will write? We will say F2 divided by 2. But after I define it as a table, if I select here, it will come with the cell, the column name. So every column here is given a name as the header, whatever has been provided. So if I say by 2, one more thing you need to note carefully. So as soon as I say enter, for all the rows below, this formula will be applied automatically. Now we don't need it, so let me delete it. Okay. So what else I can do with the table? Let me keep this table. If I want a column total here, if I press this, automatically the total will be created in the last column, which if it is numeric. And if I say last column box enabled, the last column will become bold. And if I say the first column enabled, the first column will become bold. Okay. Now we have this with a banded row. If I press this banded column, so similar to how the rows are colored as alternative rows as different color to create a band, here the alternative columns also will be banded and it will create a different column. So if you are selecting some other style, okay, I selected a style which is not having any band or anything. Now if I say here, let me select some style here. I will select only the banded column. So it will give me other options so that I can band only the columns. And if I remove this, if I say banded row, so it will give me an option to make only the rows as banded. Now I created the table and I don't need this, I don't like this color. I want to change it to a different style. So you can always go to the table design and choose the table style, whichever you like, and make it change to that color you like. So I don't need the last column to be bold. Let me remove it. And I don't need the first column to be bold. Let me remove it. So you have a different style. Now assume I have defined this table, but I don't want this to be defined as a table. I want to make it as a simple table. So you can always go to the tool section where you can say convert to range. It will convert to range again. So now it is not a table. You go to the table design menu has been disappeared and it has become a normal table which you can use. But it is recommended that it is always better to have it as a table. Let me just make it as table once again. Okay. What else is the advantage? There are one or two things which we will see as a sneak peek, but we will see it later in detail. One advantage is to have a slicer. So I can create a slicer based on budget frequency. So if I click monthly, it will list only the monthly. It will say only the quarterly. It will say only the unplanned. All those things it can give. Okay, if I press on this remove filter, everything will go. But do you need this? Yeah, you may need it later. But instead of that, as soon as you create a table, you are already created with a filter and sort everything. So you can do a filter, you can do a sort, or you can do filter based on your own condition. Everything can be done on this. When we were looking at it, like I just wanted to touch upon one small thing related to filter, that is a filter by color. Okay, suppose for that let me just go to my previous screen because I don't want to disturb that table. There also you can do, but let us not disturb that. Okay, let's just create a filter here. And what I'm doing, there are few column rows, I'm making it as some color. Okay, and few columns I'm making it with different color. Okay, now when we are filtering it, we normally filter by text, right? So you will be seeing which one to look at or which one to view and other thing. There is one more option called filter by color, and if I press filter by green, only my green highlighted rows will appear. And if I go back and say I want filter by orange, so only the orange will come. And if I remove this filter, all will come. With this, we have come to the end of today's session, and I hope today's session also is very informative and you are able to learn something new. We'll continue with the next episode with making our expense tracker with more control, and you will also learn how to use dates and how to add dates and all other things in our next session. Thank you all, and once again, I request you all to provide your comments with the feedbacks, and that will really help us. Thank you. Bye bye.